With all vintage equipment, snare drum, a guitar, even an analog console, all of it is unique to itself because of the way it's built. They're not built in a mass way like they are now, and they're not a 1 and 0 component. So therefore, they have a life of their own. Sometimes the components can be out of tolerance due to age, due to the initial specs. They may or be in or out of what the initial specs were, or for whatever reason, a certain tube, a certain transformer, whatever is in it has its own unique property like a human does. You can get 25 of any one of these particular pieces of gear, and every one of them has their own color and sound to them. So the ones that we have, we've carefully picked out of a bunch that have that unique character and sound to them. And that's what we want to model so that the consumer, and so artists, whoever they might be using them, engineers, producers, anyone who would be using them, could use them in a home recording environment, whether it be an apartment, whether it be a commercial space someplace in the city, or even a professional studio in Montana, Alaska, Germany, anywhere in the world. The Fairchild is definitely, without a shadow of doubt, the most classic compressor that's ever been built. The Fairchild is the Mustang of cars in a sense, in that the Fairchild is a go-to product or piece or compressor for everybody. It's very simple. There are 2 knobs, and it has a sound to it. And it's most likely been made famous mainly by the Beatles, because it's tremendously, a lot of the Beatles sound was a Fairchild compressor. Fairchild compressor is also a piece of gear that when you insert it in or go to use it, colors the sound in a very beautiful way. Technically speaking, it has 6386 tubes in it, 4 per channel, that are a very, very variable mu tube. They're a very unusual tube, and that's a large part of the secret of the sound. You'll find the same component in a few other compressors like Gates have them, and Collins use them as well. And that's a large part of the secret of that vintage sound. The Fairchild compressor possesses a beautiful attack to it, as well as a great release to it. So what that means is it really preserves the front end of the note in a really fantastic way, in that it tightens it up and makes it have a great attack, but which defines the note, as well as a beautiful length to it, if you'd like. So it's kind of a universal compressor in that it does everything in one, besides the fact that it colors the sound really beautifully. If you have a harsh sounding instrument or something that doesn't have a lot of depth or beauty to it, the Fairchild is fantastic makeup from that standpoint. I believe the Fairchild is most likely most loved on a voice. It's probably the most preferred place it's used. That would also include background vocals. Some people like on guitars or acoustical instruments. Electronic-oriented things like machines or anything like that, it's okay on, but anything that's acoustic, dobro, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, anything that comes from acoustic perspective initially is always amplified in a very beautiful way by the Fairchild. My Fairchild has been used on the Goo Goo Dolls recordings that you hear. Probably most famous, you might think of the song called Iris that was in the City of Angels soundtrack. Had a beautiful sound to it. And it was definitely on that I used it on. I used it on Bird Girls Don't Cry by Fergie, which was another, fairly substantial record. And John Mayer's Your Body's a Wonderland is another record it was used on. 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton. I even used it on Bette Midler's Wind Beneath My Wings. They're all classic records that set up those artists' careers. And again, if you think about those records, the voice in every one of those records is something you remember. Pultec is, again, another classic piece of equipment. Very simple, only a few choices of the frequencies, but once again, it has the same properties to it in that, in terms of what it adds from the low frequency to the high frequency, can be a little bit absent in terms of, you don't hear the piece of equipment. That's one of the beauties about actually the Pultec, is that if you want something to be brighter or more warmer, it allows you to do that, but you don't really hear the sound of that piece of equipment in it. The only sound that you notice with the Pultec is that, again, like the Fairchild, partly because of how it's built technically, has a beautiful, beautiful round gorgeous warmth to it and a very creamy top end that you don't get with a lot of pieces of equipment.